Hi, I'm Jackie Grennan Brooks. I'm with the Long Island Explorium. We're a children's museum for the whole family. Our founding director, Lauren Hubbard, a plant biologist, taught us about the role of native plants and the importance they play in the ecological health of the Long Island Sound and our environment. So we wrote grants to the Long Island Sound Futures Fund, and we got 2 of them, to build native plant gardens and native plant rain gardens. We decided we wanted to pay forward what we learned from Lauren. Today we're building us the last of a series of rain gardens. We're hoping that through our workshops and through our demonstration sites here, that we can help the Long Island community better understand how we all can be stewards of our environment, we all can be citizen scientists, and we can all take charge of responsible ownership of our beautiful coastal environment. So let's see what we're doing.
A rain garden is a shallow bowl that we dig into or build into the landscape that we direct stormwater into. So in this case, we have the water coming from this parking lot is going to go through an inlet that's right behind us into this rain garden that we built. In this case, the garden is 12 inches deep. That's maximum depth for a rain garden. We are going to plant it with native plants. We're going to add a little compost in, and by doing that, we're going to create a healthy soil and then our native plants with the compost and the healthy soil will do the cleaning of that water, and usually within 2 to 3 feet of water percolating through that soil, it's become drinkably clean, getting back into the groundwater, going off to Port Jefferson Bay just down the road.
So we have a lot of good stuff here. So we have Asclepias tuberosa, which is this butterfly weed, and then we have agastache, and this is anise hyssop. So we have a lot of good things here. We have shrubs, some evergreens, and some flowering things that go all the way from June all the way to October. These are really good pollinator plants, especially this one. This is a good pollinator plant for the monarch butterfly, and then these also attract insects, bees, butterflies, a lot of different species around here that are attracted to these native plants.
90% of our insects across the U.S. need a specific plant to grow up on. They need to eat or be sheltered, or something has to happen on a specific type of plant. For instance, the most common one that most people know about is the monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly lays its egg on milkweed plants, so Asclepias plants. That egg turns into a caterpillar. The caterpillar eats the milkweed, and by eating the milkweed, the sap of the milkweed is actually poisonous. And then it makes the caterpillar poisonous, and it makes the butterfly poisonous, which is why the butterfly is so brightly orange. It's telling the world, I'm poisonous, please don't eat me. And so that's how that works. Another one that most people know about are inchworms. We have 1 million inchworms that come out in the spring, and they are falling from the trees. Well, that's because their host plant is normally oak trees. And so they're in the oak trees, they're coming up and down in the oak trees. But the difference between them is they're not poisonous, they just make millions of them because 90% of them are going to be eaten by the birds. So they go the opposite way. Instead of being poisonous, they do too many. Or some insects they hide very well. So some caterpillars look like the flower that they're found on, so that they hide on the plant and hide very well. So they all have different mechanisms to not be eaten. Why this is important is a pair of robins make a nest. They eat about 6,000 insects, mostly caterpillars, to grow that brood of birds. They don't feed the baby birds seeds and things like that. They feed them insects, and especially caterpillars. And they need to do about 6,000 caterpillars for one brood of bird. And many birds, like chickadees and robins, will have 2 broods. So that's like 12,000 caterpillars that they're going to eat in the spring every year. And so you need to have a lot of insects for them. We are finding that because most Americans are planting non-native plants in their yard. They're planting more plants about their color and shape and structure, and the aesthetics, and not about the habitat, is that they don't have those insects associated with them. And because of that, we are finding that we have about 35 times less biomass of insects, which means that there's less food for the birds. And so that's how that whole cycle works forward. Most Americans have only about 0 to 5% native plants on their property, and it's usually a tree. It's not usually some of the other plants that are just as important.
So this project had two objectives. One was to bring awareness to the public of what rain gardens are, and also to provide a service to the village in the form of helping to clean the water that reaches our waterways and providing a native habitat for local fauna. We created an exhibit at the Long Island Explorium, which is a museum for children and their families, to educate the public on the importance of rain gardens and the use of native plants. People were very interested in the fact that there's something very easy that they can actually do in their own backyards that will help the environment of the whole island. Everybody gardens. This is something that everybody's familiar with. Even 3-year-old children will plant in their yards, at school, even at our museum.
As the master gardener and the gardener, I am to maintain all 3 rain gardens. There's very little maintenance to a rain garden. The first 2 years are really the crucial time: weeding, litter removal. You don't need fertilizer in a rain garden. It fertilizes itself by the native plantings that are in the garden. I have to prune, preferably in the spring. I'd like to leave things in a garden for winter interest and for habitat, which is important. Margot Garant, our mayor in the village, has been absolutely 100% supportive with me for any kind of beautification projects, with the Explorium, with their rain gardens.
We found that there was a lot of surprises, both from the children, the adults, and the teenagers who were participating in both workshops and just visiting the exhibit at the museum. So although about half of adults had said they had heard about the rain gardens, 90% were surprised by something they learned by being part of the exhibit. So for example, many of the adults in particular were very surprised about how beautiful the plants were. They talked a lot about the sensory experience, both the children and the adults as well. How things looked, how things felt, and just how beautiful the plants were. A lot of the children talked a lot about the butterflies and how they would come to their gardens if they had a rain garden. So it really was an experience for the participants to be surprised by what they learned, as well as just to see not just the benefits, but how beautiful the rain gardens could really be. Our biggest takeaway is that people really felt they could do this project at home, and rain gardens are not ugly.
Through the simple process of planting native plants and creating rain gardens, we can design beautiful landscapes, we can keep our water clean, and we can become stewards of our environment, restoring the health of all of us. Happy planting.